Good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. This is the 7th episode of Wine Wednesdays, and sadly for this season it is the last episode, but last but not least, we've got a fantastic guest. And the reason I say wherever you are, morning, evening, whatever, today our guest is speaking to us from Beijing in China. So it's very late at night for him. It's early in the morning for me, and probably when you're all watching this, it'll be somewhere between 2 p.m. in the afternoon and 8 in the evening if you're in the United States or Europe. And if in Australia, you'll be getting up really, really early if you're watching this live. But actually, to be completely honest, we are pre-recording this one. So this episode, we will not have live questions, but you may still ask your questions because they will be forwarded to myself or to our guest, and our guest, drumroll, Cyril Camus from Camus Cognac. He will be our guest, but let's just see what happened in the first 6 episodes. First of all, we had Konstantin Guntram from Rheinhessen, who makes spectacularly good Rieslings. And if you're not familiar with Riesling, a lot of people think of Riesling as being a sweet wine, but actually really good Riesling is rich, not so much sweet, it's rich and delicious. And I highly recommend you try Konstantin Guntram's beautiful Rieslings. Then we had Alessandra Bindi Sagadi, who is one of the 12 noble families of Siena, and it was a fascinating history of Siena, the paleo races, and her wines, which are stunningly beautiful. We're just introducing into the United States this year, and you can get them in Europe, of course, already. Then we had these two guys. On your left is Markus Huber, who makes an amazing wine in Austria under his name, Huber. And on the right is Eric Mackendal, who is on the Danube in Wachau and makes one of the finest Grüne Veltliners in Austria as well. So those two were a split show. Great fun, really amusing characters. Then unfortunately you had to endure 2 hours of me, a double show talking about port and Madeira. I hope you survived that, and I hope you learned a lot. And then we went on to another double show. It started off with Laura Rees from Gusbourne in England, and Gusbourne makes the best English sparkling wine, the top quality English sparkling wine, which is available. And coming up for Christmas, I highly recommend you stock up on your English sparkling wines from Gusbourne. On that show as well, the other half of that show were Lord and Lady Carnarvon, the 8th Earl of Carnarvon, and his wife, Lady Carnarvon. And you might recognize the building. It's actually officially called Highclere Castle, but it's better known as the Downton Abbey building. And they make a wonderful gin called Highclere Castle Gin. So we were tasting that. And then we went on to New Zealand, where we had Amanda Johnson, the owner of Spy Valley Estate Winery in New Zealand, and Daniel Adriatico. And between the two of them, they were very, very interesting, talking about what is my everyday white wine at home for the past 15 years, Spy Valley Sauvignon Blanc. Highly recommend you get that. Now, before we bring on our guest, I'm actually going to show you a video. It's about one of the Viking cruises itineraries. It's called Chateau, Rivers and Wine, and where the guests can visit the cellar of Camus. It's on a 5-day, part of 5-day, an optional excursion out of Bourg, and they return to the ship in Bly. Guests do not, unfortunately, visit Cyril's private house. which you'll see in this, but you will have an amazing workshop with the master blender in the cellar of Camus, blending their cognac and your own cognac. And I believe you take home a bottle of cognac with you. So that's a really fun excursion. Now, we're going to watch this video, and then I'll bring in our guest, Cyril Camus, in a second. So enjoy this little video, it's not too long.
While Bordeaux is famous for its reds, there's another story here. A story built on distillation and aging in oak barrels, where the fruit of the vine is reborn. A story that began amid the vineyards surrounding the Camus family chateau, where I went behind closed doors for a visit with my good friend Cyril Camus to learn more about his family business and its artisan culture that has been passed from father to son for 5 generations.
Camus was founded in 1863 by what would be then my grandfather's grandfather.
What began as a simple wine-growing business was transformed when Jean-Baptiste Camus took the huge risk to compete with the elite. A gamble that created one of the world's most treasured brands.
We were wine growers, not from the nobility, didn't have a coat of arms, and at the time you couldn't be considered a serious company or a serious brand if you don't have this link to aristocracy. What my grandfather's grandfather then did, the founder, is that he actually took the key to the gate, which has this very unique clover design, and he used that as the basis for the family emblem.
So
logo.
This is the original gate key.
It is the original.
And that the critical part of the key has become...
It has become the company logo.
Camus has grown into a brand that is so loved around the world. They actually export almost everything they produce here. And their first big international client? It was the Russian Empire.
Camus was the official cognac at the court of the last Tsar. Of course, 1917 brought a few changes, as we well know, and my grandfather, he vowed to bring Camus back to Russia during his lifetime, which he did, and at the time of the Soviet Union, Camus was actually the only cognac that was present in all the Soviet countries. So Camus' history is really long in Russia and pretty much uninterrupted.
While the process of creating cognac may appear to have changed little over the centuries, at Camus it is treated as a living tradition that continually evolves.
In a family-owned cognac company, and today we're the last, you never work for yourself. You're always taking advantage of the work that your father has done, and you use that to build the company for the next generation. So you always work from the past for the future.
One of the things I found most interesting at Camus was the hands-on experience of their master blender workshops.
So here you have in front of you 4 different glasses with 4 different cognac.
Okay.
It's a journey for the senses, stepping through each of the major regions that provide the eau de vie Camus uses to create the complex, harmonious aromas of its cognacs.
Slowly we put our glass just close our nose. Very slowly. It's good, huh?
The goal is to learn how to identify the subtle character differences between the samples, which you then use in a ratio of your choosing to blend your one-of-a-kind cognac. It's a rare opportunity to peek inside the world of the cellar master, to better understand this profession that is as much art as it is science.
When you are crafting your own product, blend it into something that is your own creation. That is a magic moment that you can only really understand if you're doing it yourself.
Bordeaux is an intriguing region that I find fascinating. I hope you'll explore more of the region's culture and traditions.
Well, wasn't that enticing? And Karina Hagen was, of course, the host of that video, and I can see that she's good friends with Cyril. So let's bring Cyril on right now. Cyril Camus. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's probably a good cognac drinking time for you in China, being what 11 o'clock at night almost.
Exactly. It's it is a Friday night. It's 11 o'clock at night, so it's perfect time for cognac indeed.
I'm just out of duty, even though it's only 10 a.m. in America. I do have a little glass of cognac with me. Usually, unless you're having champagne for breakfast, you don't really, if you're English, don't have a drink until 11s. 11s is the 11 o'clock hour when you can have a glass of something after your coffee. But you and I have actually met. Well, I think over the years of, I've been in the business so long, and you have too, that we've probably met at various big events. But we first really met on the shakedown cruise for the Viking Sky, which was in Italy, and that was absolutely fabulous.
That's right. That was that was a wonderful trip actually. Yes. So that was maybe 4 years ago or something like that.
But actually, I don't know if I told you back then, because I'm not sure I actually knew myself back then that I have connections, fairly deep connections to cognac. Did you know that? Jean Martel, who was born in around 1695, his great-great-grandfather was called François Martel from the 1500s, and I have our family tree there. The founder of Martel and myself, we both descend from this François Martel. So I have a connection to, but actually Jean Martel moved to Cognac. François Martel was in Brocade. He's a deacon in Brocade, and so anyways, that's an amusing little folly. Let's see the picture of Jean Martel. Just see if there's a family resemblance. I don't know, he looks more like you as far as the hair fashion goes, but
I was gonna say, give us a few more months of stay at home, and then maybe you'll turn like him. Yes.
Yeah, but certainly the noses run in the family. But the funny thing about your video, which we just watched, is you mentioned that you're the 5th generation of Camus, and that it was a very audacious move because you weren't from the sort of aristocracy of cognac. But I know that when Jean Martel moved to Cognac, he wasn't aristocracy either. He was just the great-great-grandson of a deacon, which is not any big shakes, I don't think. So actually, I put you as much royalty as Cognac as anyone else. But then my other connection to Cognac is a funny one. When I was when I left school in England, boarding school, I got a job in Cognac as a tour guide and interpreter. And so every day, this is me on my Solex, which is a sort of French motorcycle with an engine on the front. It's a cross between a bicycle and a motorcycle, in one of the very, very old streets of Cognac. And Cognac is a spectacularly old, I would think almost medieval town. But this was really interesting because every day I'd go to work, and they actually trained me. They sent me on 3 tours with other tourist guides. And then after 3, they said, right, now you take a tour. And so after 3 tours, I was considered good enough to, or I certainly wasn't good enough, but I was sent off on my own with groups of 20, 30 tourists, sort of listening to, thinking I was a great expert, age 18. And when we weren't doing tours, we were stuck in the bottling line. But the best part of my job was, because I spoke French, very luckily, I was looking after the VIPs who visited Hennessy, because I was working for Hennessy Cognac. And the trouble with that, though, is that I would spend all day drinking cognac. And you can see from that picture of riding a Solex on cobblestone streets as an 18-year-old who's had way too much to drink. I certainly fell off at least once, and it was a very memorable trip. After that, I went to work for Harrods wine department in London before moving around. So that's my cognac days. And tell me about your family. The history of cognac is from 1863, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. The company was created in 1863. So funnily, as you mentioned, most cognac companies, they were not, unlike maybe in the wine business, cognac companies were created from people who were either merchants or wine growers, but very, very few were ever from aristocracy, and definitely not from the French aristocracy. So cognac was a product that the merchants, being from the British merchants or Swedish or Dutch or French, in the 18th century would come and load up in the Cognac region on both alcohol, so brandy from the Cognac region, and salt. This is what you needed for the journey across the seas to the various parts of the various empires. And this is how we ended up with having a lot of people settling down in Cognac from Britain or from Scandinavia, and starting up trading houses. And this is very much how Hennessy got started. This is how Martel got started, or Courvoisier or whatnot. And about maybe 100 or 150 years later, then you had houses like us. We were wine growers, so we used to supply the merchant houses, the trading houses, with our cognac. They would then get blended and sold under those different brand names. So in 1863, that was a time when there was a lot of tension between the wine growers and the trading houses. And some wine growers like us decided to set up on their own and to stop supplying the trading houses and actually start selling the cognac under their own name. So this is what Jean-Baptiste Camus, the founder of the company, did. He got together with a number of other wine growers and a barrel maker and started a company which they called La Grande Marque, meaning the great brand. So already quite an ambitious name. Of course, this was maybe 10 years before the phylloxera struck the Cognac region and started destroying all the Cognac vineyards. So a lot of Cognac houses that were created at the time disappeared right away. We were lucky enough to have lots of stocks that had been laid down in the 10 years before phylloxera hit us. So we actually grew out of that sort of first class crisis to be one of the few Cognac houses from that era to actually grow. Eventually, through the different generations of the family, the second generation started actually taking our products maybe outside of France and England and towards the east. We were the official cognac at the court of the Tsar under the second generation of the family. The third generation of the family, my grandfather, took us to Asia and into the world of duty-free. This is when we started entering with the brand all the different airports. My father consolidated very much our position in Asia, making us a leading brand in Japan, for example, consolidating our presence in duty-free as well. And I'm the fifth generation, and I've been, I guess, focusing on taking the company into China and to some extent into the US. So in the past 150 years, some things have stayed true. We always see ourselves as challengers. Because you could say, okay, we've been around 157 years. That's a long time, but actually we're a young cognac company. We're half the age of the other main cognac players. But from that era, from the late 19th century wave of cognac company creations, we were the only cognac company that managed to grow into a top 5 position. So within the top 5 cognac companies, we are by far the youngest one. We're also the only one to be still family owned, 100% family owned and family managed. So that sets us apart, I would say.
That is absolutely amazing. I didn't know that you were the only family owned company left. That's a very prestigious position to be in. And let's just go back to that picture where we saw the 5 generations, because I think you look like him. Yes, for sure.
Yes, that's something, I guess, about hair and mustache in the family. Yes.
What was his name?
This was Jean-Baptiste Camus. So he was the founder, originally a wine grower. So we also from the main cognac companies, the sort of the ones with global reach. We are one of the few ones to be started by wine growers, and still today that's a huge part of what we do. We consider that we make cognacs. We are cognac makers more than trading houses. We are wine growers.
How long were you actually making? How much your family? When did they start making wine versus?
That we don't actually know. The records we could find don't go that far back. One generation before, yes, but after that, prior to that, we don't know. We don't know. So at least one generation prior.
You said that most cognac houses were not started by French. What was your family's origins? How far your ancestry DNA? What would you be recorded as?
Actually, French and Italian. When you do those DNA tests nowadays, we find it's entirely French and some parts of Italian. It will be quite different going forward because I have three kids, 3 boys, and their heritage is going to be half. Well, for 2 of them is half European and half Asian. Because for the first 2, their mother is Chinese, and my youngest son is going to be half Western Europe and half Eastern Europe, because his mother is Ukrainian. So going forward, I think it's going to be a little bit harder to define the.
Yeah, well, I did my ancestry.com ancestry DNA, and I was a little bit surprised because you think I'm English, don't you? But actually, I'm actually 64% Western European. I'm 20% Scottish, Irish, and Welsh. I'm actually only 5% English, which is really interesting. But that's, yeah, so you never know. And it's fascinating to get those results. But what is your, let's go back. So that was the first of the generations. Then the second.
The second generation was Gaston Camus. There were actually 2 brothers involved in the business at that time. One of them, Edmond, really focused on the production part, whereas Gaston, who's in the picture here, basically focused on the export part of the business, sort of selling our cognac. And by the end of his career, he was spending about half of his time in St. Petersburg. Russia had become our number 1 market, very, very significant for us. We were the official cognac at the court of the Tsar. And of course, in 1917, with the revolution, things changed dramatically for us. And this was probably the second crisis in the existence of the company. Every generation has had its own set of challenges, I would say, or crises to go through. And this was it. This was for Gaston Camus, losing his number 1 customer, definitely the most renowned one and the most important one.
That picture of him in the field with that big beard, I wonder if he had that whilst he was a salesman, or whether he had.
In the cold winters of St. Petersburg, you need some protection against the cold, yes. And
you can imagine someone coming to sell you wine, you're just going to be sort of staring and just say whatever you want.
Exactly. Well, you do have to have a presence, you know, especially in those days, right? You didn't get to do too many of those quick round trip, you know, a flight in, a flight out, and if you didn't meet the right people, you could fly back again in a week's time, right? This in those times, you had to make sure every trip counted, and I'm sure personal appearance and charisma was a big part of that. This is something that third generation, actually, when you go back to those pictures, if you look at Cyril Camus, he was probably in the family in all the different generations, the most charismatic of the leaders of the company or the family members. I never knew him very much because he was traveling all the time when I was growing up.
Was he your grandfather?
And he was.
Was he your grandfather or your great uncle?
My grandfather.
Grandfather.
Yeah. Yeah, grandfather Cyril Camus. He's the one who took the company into duty-free market and throughout Asia. But he was on the road all the time, so I would see him around this time of the year, actually, for Christmas dinner. This is when the whole family would get together. So I would see him maybe twice a year, 3 times a year. Didn't know much about him until I joined the company. And for the first 10 years when I was traveling, when it was my turn to travel around the world for the company, I was meeting people from everywhere who had met him and could tell me all the stories, all the evenings I spent with him, the conversations I had with him, and so on. So I actually discovered him through the eyes of all the people he'd met and all the people he had an impact on.
Yeah, no, that's really a blessing. My father, who died this year, was in the wine trade, as you know, Michael Broadbent, and to me, it's like he's still alive because everyone knows him, everyone knew him. A lot of people maybe knew him better than I did, even, I don't know. But it's nice to be in an industry where you can talk about your family and it's like they're still here. But that picture of him that you just showed us looks like he had a great cheeky smile and a twinkle in his eye, who's probably had a fantastic time traveling, I would imagine. Great.
He did.
Great sense of humor.
He enjoyed the finer things in life, and this is a perfect representation of what we do, actually. Because you know, when you say that when you look at the fact that we're the only Cognac company or large Cognac company to be remaining family owned, there has to be a reason for that, right? And I believe that for us it is that purpose we have. I mean, it's of course the passion we have for making amazing products, but it is the purpose we see in it and the gratification we have from seeing people taking pleasure from what we do. And Cyril Camus, my grandfather, was really someone who was not only enjoying those things for himself, but he was also making sure our cognac could create that pleasure. So today, this notion of providing enjoyment to people enjoying the finer things in life, that's what moves us, and that's also very much our life. So I think that explains.
And you say that each generation had its share of problems. Obviously, your grandfather would have coped with the Second World War. How did Camus survive during the Second World War?
We did okay. Actually, the entire Cognac region did okay because the German army, which occupied this part of France, assigned to supervise the cognac business. They assigned someone who was, prior to the war, a distributor for a cognac brand in Germany. So it's someone that really liked the product and had a vested interest, I would say, in protecting the industry. So the cognacs that got shipped out during the war or got confiscated tended to be the lower quality ones, and the region at the end of the war had much smaller stocks in the cellars, but all of the best quality. So it made it easier to rebound and restart straight very, very quickly. Also, I guess we're very pragmatic and innovative or inventive industry as well. My grandfather, ahead of the war, actually bought a forest because one of the issues in any time in times of war is actually the resources in terms of fuel, and part of making cognac is distillation. Right, cognac is basically distilled wine. So we take white grapes from the region, which we harvest, we ferment it into wine, then we distill it through a double distillation. So it's a double cycle of distillation before aging it in oak barrels. So distillation takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of heat. Today we do it with gas. At that time, it was distillation was the fire was generated by wood. So to be able to produce cognac at that time, you needed wood. So he secured that through procuring an entire forest at the beginning of the war.
Was it a forest where you could also get oak for the coopers to make your barrels?
No, it wasn't. But it was just for wood for burning for distillation, which then got used also. Funnily enough, at the end of the war, obviously there was not transportation was an issue, right? And so he had actually converted some really old, obsolete school buses and converted them into steam operated. So wood burning as well, steam operated trucks, and to be able to ship our products across Europe. So we managed.
Oh, fantastic. And then your father was the next person in that lineup of marvelous characters.
Yeah, indeed. And started very, very, very young in the company, and we eventually, during my grandfather's time, we rebuilt our business in what had become by then the Soviet Union, and we through barter trade, actually, we're at that time we were exchanging cognac against vodka, and one way for us to sell more cognac into the Soviet Union was to make sure the French were drinking more vodka. So we spent a lot of time promoting vodka in France so that we could exchange against more cognac to ship to the Soviet Union. But of course, in the late 80s, this all came to an end again, and my father also had to rebuild for a third time our business in Russia, at the same time growing it into Japan, which in the 90s was the second largest market for cognac. It became a very big luxury market.
Is your father still around? Is he still alive?
Yes, very much so, And
does he still work?
Not on in any official manner, but this is a business you never completely leave. And my father's passion beyond, he ran the company for about 35 years, I believe, and his passion was beyond the traveling and so on. It was really actually the vineyards. He loves nature, and he loved the production part of what we do. And today that's very much what he does. He's walking through the vineyards every single day, and then sort of reporting everything that should sort of be improved or modified, and so on. So keeping a very careful eye on what is a pretty large estate now. We're one of the largest wine growers in Charente. This was our origin, and we kept on building up our vineyard holdings, I would say. And today, especially in the Bordeaux cru of the Cognac region, so the Cognac region is divided in sub-regions, like you would have in Bordeaux, different types of soils producing wines and therefore cognacs of different characteristics. All our vineyards are in the center of the Cognac region, in the Bordeaux cru. That's the smallest one, producing very floral, very aromatic cognacs, and we're the largest landowner in that particular cru. So my father has a very important duties to make sure it's done smoothly.
Fantastic. Well, what's very noticeable about that picture is that it's 5 generations of men. Did the daughters not go into it, and was it only the eldest son, or how did the succession happen?
Okay. There was only one generation where this question was raised really. We are a family actually that has been producing mostly men. But on my grandfather's generation, he did have 7 sisters and cousins. And at the end, and he was the youngest of the 8 siblings in the end. But at that time, it would have been very difficult to keep on carrying the name if it wasn't a man taking over. Today, obviously, this would absolutely not be an issue. We just don't. We haven't had any girls in this generation. Been trying. Still hope.
It's certainly not too late on your part. Keep going. When did you join the family business?
I joined 2000. What was it? Something like 2003. Oh, actually, I mean, I joined in China in the mid 90s, working in the representative office and the operations here in China. Then I joined the main office in France in I think it was 98, something like this, and I started running the company in 2003, so about 17 years ago.
And how do you run a company that's in Cognac, based in China? You live full time in China, right?
I do now, but for honestly, for the past 25 years, you could say that I was living both in Cognac and in China. I was flying back and forth very, very, very regularly, plus all the other countries, right? I must say, that the heart is in Cognac. Home was in Beijing or in Shanghai, and my work was everywhere in between and around. So I've had a very nomadic life for the past 25 years, which COVID has sort of put an end to temporarily. And it is, I spent the first half of the year in France, and it was the first time since I'm 17 years old that I spent more than a month at a time in France. So this was a very nice way, in a way, to reconnect. It was an opportunity to reconnect with the Cognac region. It still felt like home, but not maybe as deep. So then that was quite nice. And now I'm back in China, and yes, borders are closed, so I'm probably going to be here for a while.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Now, I have a brother who's in France, but not in the business. And to go back to your question, how do you choose, who's going to be running the company next? We actually have a very unique succession plan on this, in the notion that there's an understanding that at every generation, French laws about inheritance is that everybody has to be given equal shares of the family assets, and that's certainly the case for us. But then there's an understanding that every generation, one of the siblings will buy out the others and consolidate the shareholding of the company in the hands of just one person, and usually the person running the company ends up being the one who's willing to buy out his siblings, because you basically have to get into debt and borrow against the future revenues of the company. So that might seem a bit odd, but it actually has, as a result, it's made sure that we've had not just 5 generations of one family running the company. We had 5 generations of entrepreneurs running the company, because it is only the one family member that wanted and knew that he or she could grow the company, that managed it. Very, very different from a lot of the family-owned businesses, especially in the wine business, maybe, where you would see the next generation seeing its role as protecting what was built by the ancestors, At Camus, we have a very different vision. It is we embrace the heritage we have, which heritage is the traditions, it's the know-how, it's the vineyards we have, it's the renown of the brand. That's the heritage, but that's something to build in. It's not something necessarily to protect. It is something you use to build something that is even more meaningful, something that that has even more impact, and for us, something that creates even more enjoyment for more of the people who enjoy the finer things in life. So this is a tool from which we build, and it also means that there's nothing at every generation that we would be more proud of than seeing the next generation doing better than us. You know, doing like our cognac blends and the quality of a cognac. We are not doing cognac today. The cognac we're doing today doesn't taste like it did 25 years ago or 50 years ago, because our role is not to keep on doing exactly the same cognac. It's to keep on doing an always better cognac. We're on this quest for perfection, right? It is a passion in the family. It is almost a faith that we have, that this is our role, always pushing the boundaries, right? Going further. So pride and success in the next generation and sort of involves knowing, you know, and at least, and it's the same for me. It's knowing my kids will do a better job than I did. So I'm looking forward to that, actually.
You have a master distiller called Frédéric Dessauzier. Is that how you pronounce it?
Frédéric is he's many things in the company, and he's someone that
is this him, the picture we're seeing now?
It is him, and he's our global brand ambassador. He would very often be the one to welcome our guests from Viking, and Frédéric is he's probably one of the most, if not the most knowledgeable person on cognac and everything that has to deal with cognac. Prior to joining us as brand ambassador, he started his career as a distiller in his family cognac house. Then he went and worked and set up a number of distilleries in India, which is a big brandy producer. And then back in Cognac, he was a president of the University of Eau de Vie for a number of years before joining us as the global brand ambassador. But earlier you were asking about the role of women in our family and in the company. Interestingly enough, today all the production aspects are managed by women. It's a young lady called Elodie who runs all the vineyard estates, and the cellar master is also a young lady called Anne-Lise, and Julie, another third young lady, is the master blender at the company. They're all under 40, all very, very, very bright, and sort of bringing also a different dimension to how we produce our products. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the production process. I know you've already touched on it, but there are, as far as I can remember, 3 principal white grapes that you use for cognac distilling, and they're not particularly great for regular drinking wines. They're not the noble grape varieties. And do you own your own vineyards, and do you use the 3 grapes, or are there more than 3 grapes nowadays? Yes, I mean, cognac is produced according to a set number of rules. It is a controlled appellation product, meaning we have to follow and producing within those guidelines. Restrictive at times, but it does have a great benefit, is that it ensures a basic quality level for any cognac. This also, I believe, is one of the reasons why cognac is such a global drink. You will find cognac everywhere in the world. You will find people who appreciate cognac everywhere in the world, very different maybe from other spirits. And part of that is because we were one of the first controlled appellation products, because through that controlled appellation system, you cannot find a bad cognac. Cognacs from one brand to the other, one quality to the other, level to the other, they will be distinctive from each other. You'll find different styles, different type of taste. all of them are good. And that is quite unique as a product. So one of those set of rules, the key regulations, key rules, is that cognac can only be produced in a certain region in the southwest of France. So basically north of Bordeaux. It's about 100 kilometers north of Bordeaux. Only in this area, only from white grapes. Within those white grapes, only 7 different varietals, of which 3 are still used today. Uni Blanc, Folle Blanche, and Colombard. Over 95% of production is Uni Blanc, because that's the most resistant type of varietal. In our vineyards, we use all 3. I
didn't know that historically there were 4 others. What were the 4 others, and when did they stop using those?
They're gone for about 25, 30 years. You would still find some here and there, but they're basically not very resistant to the climate conditions we have. So I've actually never seen anyone who would do sort of a mono varietal of those. But Colombard and Folle Blanche you still find. They're harder as vineyards to keep, but the Folle Blanche in particular are very interesting in aromatic profile. So we use that. About 10% of our vineyard is planted in Colombard and Folle Blanche, which is probably the highest mix that I know of in the region.
How has global warming impacted your growing, and any other impacts on cognac?
It hasn't yet, not in a significant way. And I mean not in a significant way in terms of what the production yields are, but it's already created a great disparity between years. So we would have years where production is at a very high level, and years where it's dramatically lower. So climate is becoming not just necessarily warmer, but definitely more unpredictable, and the seasons tend to be of varying lengths, and that has a big impact on the actual yield. The good thing with cognac, unlike wine, is that we, after aging our cognac, so we would blend different years together to find a harmony of taste. Whereas in your bottle of wine, you would understand that from a vintage to another, you would expect to find a different taste in the bottle. In cognac, similar as other spirits, you expect, when you buy a bottle of Camus XO or Camus VSOP, you expect to find the same taste all the time. Doesn't matter if you're buying this bottle today or if you're buying it a year from now, you expect it to taste the same. The way we achieve this is by blending different years and cognacs from different vineyards together with what are essentially different elements each time, to recreate the same final taste. That is, when we look at the work of producing cognac, that is, every step of the production is really important and can make a difference. But the blending is really where the magic is happening. And the role of the master blender is unique in that sense, is that every barrel he has is unique. Once you've used that barrel, you'll never find exactly the same cognac. But from that huge stock of unique barrels, you have to be able to blend them, mix them together slowly, because it's a very slow process, to create each time the same result. So it is like creating the same painting time and time again, but they give you different colors of paints each time that you have to mix together in a different way. So it's a unique work.
The skill
quite magic.
The master distiller is an amazing skill. So right, let's just go back a bit. You pick the grapes, and then between that and the pot stills, what happens to the grapes?
So you pick the grapes, you press them to extract the juice. It's pneumatic horizontal press that we're using, so that we don't crush the grapes per se. We crack them, so we just get the juice without the bitterness from the grape skin. We filter out all the remaining skin, so you've got your grape juice. We ferment this. and it turns into wine. And it is this wine, which, as you were mentioning, is very acidic. Not something you would enjoy drinking with your, with your seafood or whatnot. So it's a white wine that we would then distill in a copper pot still, in a double cycle. So distillation is a simple process. It's taking that wine, you put it in a big copper pot in a way. You heat it up, and it will start boiling. You will have the vapors will rise. You capture those vapors and cool them down by running the pipe where the vapors are into cold water. As the vapors get into in contact with the cold water, they turn into liquid again. The first cycle, you end up with a liquid which is at about 25, 27% alcohol. You take that liquid and you distill it again, and you end up with a very transparent eau de vie spirit at about 70% alcohol. And this is the basis of cognac. It's a very clear, super aromatic liquid or alcohol. But it's at 70% alcohol, so 140 proof, full of character, very youthful. And this is this clear cognac that you will put in oak barrels for a period that cannot be less than 2 years.
And is it
then
always very old oak, or what's the oldest barrels you use and what's the youngest?
For barrels, we use a small percentage of new barrels every year. About 3% of our stock of barrel is new every year. We tend to age cognac in barrels that have been used already, because they release less tannin in a way, and in a much slower fashion. At Camus, we mostly produce and sell older types of cognacs, so VSOPs and XOs. So they have to age longer in oak, which means we want to keep a very light balance of oak to aromas. We don't want our cognacs to be too oaky, too woody. So we have to make sure the barrels only release those tannins very, very slowly. So usually it's barrels that have been used multiple times. Different from maybe some other brands that try to do that faster, because the cognacs that we would sell tend to be the younger expression. So the type of barrels you choose, like how old the barrels are, how often they've been used, will have an impact on your end product. Definitely have an impact on the woodiness, oakiness of the product. Once again, for us, the less wood we have, I would say, the better off we are. You cannot age cognac in anything else than wood, because wood is a porous element, so it allows the cognac to breathe, to oxidize very, very slowly, and that's the principle of aging. So that's what adds complexity to the product, brings a lot of smoothness into the product. This is through the aging where the alcoholic strength decreases, so it makes it more approachable to drink as well. So those are, it's really important to age in oak, but we don't think that you should impact too much of the oak into the cognac. We want to preserve most of the original characteristics of the product before it went into the oak. So that is the floral aromas and the fruity aromas.
Do you what's the oldest barrel that you have in your?
We have we still have some 1945 barrels. By that I mean cognac that was harvested and distilled in 1945, that is still in wood.
The wood might be a lot older in that case.
And the wood might be a lot older than this. We also have much older cognacs than this, but frankly, after 50 years in wood, that's usually very much a maximum. If you leave cognac too long in the oak barrel, it will start you'll start to lose some of the liveliness of the product. It starts to fade a little bit and gets too oaky. So once it's reached that optimum, we would put it under glass, in glass container, big glass jars called damjan. And those, in this, it doesn't age anymore, but it remains then at its optimum. So we have older cognacs, but not in barrel. And the older barrel, I don't know, because we never throw them away. When a barrel's sort of used up, all it's released all the tannins, all the particles into the cognac. We would empty it, we take it apart, and we just replace some of the staves with new ones and rebuild it this way. So rotating through, you can have a barrel which has none of the original pieces, but it's been around for 50 years.
This picture here, people may wonder what's happening, but in the cooperage, they use fire to bend the staves, and they also, in some places, they use the fire to give it a toast, I guess. But
yes,
for your sake, this is more about bending the staves than giving it toast, I guess.
Indeed, yeah. Building the barrel is very much a manual work, and it's quite hard work to do one barrel. So yes, we take good care of them. Yes.
You have your own cooper?
No, we don't. It's become a very specialized job, and we work with local companies. Same thing that the cooperage we work with, they've been in business for 3 or 4 generations, so they.
The Madeira producers and Scotch producers like to sell barrels to each other because it gives the barrels some certain characteristics. And I think some cognac producers have sold barrels to Madeira, but do the cognac producers buy barrels from other places like Madeira?
We can. It's generally, no, it's not a habit. It is not a habit. I think because barrels are such an important part of how we shape the final taste of our product, we tend to need to know the full history of the barrel. When we always talk about tracking our stock of cognac and knowing which cognac we have where, we actually have to do the same thing with our stock of barrels. We have to know the history of every single barrel, which cognac was in there for how long, how many times was the barrel fixed, how many of the new staves, so we can really sort of put the right cognac in the right barrel to get the final taste we want.
You talk about when you put the wines into the cognacs into demijohns, and that slows down the aging. But that's not only to slow down the aging. There's what we call the angel's share. If you go to cognac, one of the features that people will notice is that the roofs in the town are black because of the spirits which evaporate. You lose, what is it, 2% a year or 10%?
About 2.5% that can be lost every year of the total stock. And what you have to understand is that cognac is, so it is an aged product. It's a blend of different years, but age, and we go from minimum of 2 years old to as I was mentioning, maybe up to 50. So the amount of stock laying down in barrels in the Cognac region is incredibly large. So 2.5% of that stock makes it actually the second largest market for cognac. Yeah. Only the United States drinks more cognac every year than the Angels do.
What is your total production of or sales, let's say, of cognac for Camus?
For Camus, we sell about 3 million bottles per year.
If you can, you're one of the top 5 producers. Are you
yes.
in size?
We're the number 5 in size and revenue as well, closer to number 4 in revenue, because we tend to have a more of a high-end product mix and market. We are, but in volume size, we're substantially smaller than the other 4. As I was mentioning, we've been playing catch up for the past 157 years, and slowly getting there. But it's also there's also a limit to this quest for maybe volumes. There's there's more inertia to changing things and improving things if you do them on a much larger scale. And for us, our purpose really is not to be the largest cognac company. It is our focus is to make the best cognac and make it available to the people who appreciate those fine things in life. And we find that at the volume we are now, I mean, it could be a bit more, it could be a bit less, is sort of the right balance for us. It gives us scale to do things. We have resources to try things. Improving the quality of a product takes a lot of research as well, especially nowadays. So you need the resources to do that. You need the scale to do it, and we have this, but it is not such a huge scale that we cannot actually affect those changes with a time span that is manageable. The last big, I would say, quality improvement we did, it gives you a notion of scale, was relatively fast. It is a distillation process that we tweaked and that is unique to us, that we call instancity, where we basically how we manage the first part of distillation. We have a very unique way of doing this. And since we started experimenting with this and then implementing it in our distillation, we could see significant impact on the quality of our product in a short time span of only 15 years.
So how is this method different to the other ways?
Basically, the first part of distillation, the alcohol or the cognac produced in the first part of the distillation has very unstable qualities in terms of the aromas and the elements that get released. So it's generally not a very pleasant drink, and it is discarded. That's what we call the heads of distillation. We have heads, the heart, and the tail, because the last part of the distillation is also sort of a very weaker alcohol strength product that doesn't smell or taste great, right? So it's also discarded. So everyone keeps just the heart of distillation, and the work of the master distiller is to know when to cut the heads from the heart. At Camus, we go further than this. We found that in those first 20 or 25 liters in the head of distillation, there are some of the liters which are really quite awful, and some that are absolutely amazing. It is completely unstable. 1 liter to the other will be a totally different aromatic and taste profile. So we actually extract those liters liter by liter, and we taste them one by one, and we reinject into the heart of distillation those 1 or 2 liters that are extremely intensely aromatic. We also distill everything on the lees with a high content of lees. All of this with the intention and the result of increasing the aromatic intensity of the final product. This is measured by okay, if we slightly more detailed for it is to say this is the chemical compound, the esters will be the precursors to the fruity aromas. By using this distillation process, we managed to increase the rate of esters from 70 grams per liter to sometimes up to 300 grams per milligrams per liter, which is, it's a quadruple intensity of aromas that we'll find in our cognacs. But that's, jokingly, I said this was a very, very, very quick turnaround improvement. It only took 15 years. But yes, this is where science is important as well. We can effect change that will be visible within 1 generation. And that's one way for us to keep progressing, and one limitation.
When you say you have to taste each liter by liter, do you actually have to taste it, or can you do it by the nose?
Oh, by nose. Yeah, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yes. In our work, 80% of the work is done on the nose.
Yeah.
The actual sipping of cognac would only be done to confirm what you already found on the nose. Yes, we don't we don't spend our day drinking at the distillery. That's a little too dangerous.
We're seeing a picture of a couple with your master distiller. I know that Cognac has a very, very large tourism industry. People come from all over the world to tour the Cognac houses. Clearly not everyone's going to get this level of attention, but tell us about the experiences of the visitors to Camus.
Well, everyone does get this level of attention. We're very passionate about hosting our guests at Camus. But one of the unique experiences that we offer, and in particular to our friends from Viking, is the possibility to make your own blend of cognac. So it's sort of a teaser into the world of the master blender, where we'll take you through a guided tasting of 4 different cognacs, and we'll explain how you could blend them together to build your own style of cognac. And it's quite a fascinating workshop, because otherwise the whole notion of discovering how cognac is made is very theoretical. But when you put those 4 glasses in front of you and you start putting them to your nose, the differences between each one are very clear, and then playing with blending them together, you can see that how just a small difference of a few drops will actually change the entire structure of the blend. And it's fun, it's educational, and you walk away from that experience with your own bottle of your very own cognac to share with friends. So.
Yeah, that's a unique experience, and clearly one of the more one amazing excursions that you can do on a Viking cruise. And if you're not on a Viking cruise, can people buy that experience, or how does it work?
You can book it. It has to be booked ahead of time. You can go on our website, camus.fr, and go into the different tours that are offered. One of them is that master blender tour. It is limited in number of master blenders we can do every week. So yes, it's recommended to book in advance.
I think we're going to taste. You're tasting the VSOP, are you?
I have both. I have with me. I have some XO and some VSOP. But yes, I brought a.
I have
bottle.
I just have an XO, so sorry.
Yeah. From the Borderies. So once again, Borderies is so that's the Cognac region at the center of the larger Cognac region, and this is where you would find the cognacs that are maybe the most aromatic, definitely the most floral ones. And I don't know if we can see the labels on here. Yeah. Basically, the soil in the Borderies region is very mineral, a lot of flint at the top as well. So the vines will have to go really deep to get the nutriments. But they will end up from Bordeaux producing a cognac that is both mineral and floral from the terpenols that are contained in the soil. The soil in Bordeaux has a density of terpenols that is higher than anywhere else in the Cognac region. It is also the only part of the Cognac region that have the type of terpenols that bring you the violet aroma. So violet and iris. So if you can smell notions of violet in a cognac, you know it's coming from Bordeaux, or that there is some Bordeaux cognac in the blend. And if it's a very crisp and mineral cognac that also has those aromas of violet, you know that it's probably a very high percentage of Bordeaux content in the blend. In this case of the Camus Bordeaux I have here, this is 100% from the Bordeaux region, and it is 100% from our own vineyards. So it's really a wine grower's cognac that is available around the world. Numbered, we do a limited number of bottles every year, so each bottle has its own number on it.
Someone asked me to ask you about the special finish that's Camus is known for, and other innovations that we can expect down the road from Camus?
I think what overall makes our cognac really distinctive is that aromatic intensity. So a big focus for us, an aromatic intensity. So that's floral, fruity, and low level of oak. So the floral we get from Bordeaux, and you'll find Bordeaux in all our blends. The fruitiness you get usually from the aging, and also from some of the other crus, and from distilling on the lees and doing our intensity method of distillation. But after all that, we can still also sometimes impart other characteristics to the product by finishing either in barrels that have contained other products before, as you were mentioning. So one thing we do, for example, is we did a port finish cognac. Actually, I think I have it somewhere here. Here we go. Sort of going okay for a while. This is also a unique product. We were the first cognac company to do a cognac that would age in our barrels normally, and then age for 6 to 8 months in barrels that have previously contained port. And that brings actually all different level of sweetness actually to the product, makes it a bit sort of rounder than a regular cognac. So we've been experimenting with this. We did a very limited release recently of a cognac we call Caribbean Expedition, because we shipped 10 barrels of that cognac from France on a sailboat, on a sail ship to Barbados, and we aged it in Barbados for a year before bringing back to Cognac for bottling, just to sort of recreate the whole sea voyage or the sea journey. And obviously during, on the sailboat, during shipment, the cognac will move in the barrel, so it ages differently, and we've been measuring that throughout the trip. And also in Barbados, very different climate, very humid, very hot, evaporation rates, angel shares, which is much higher than usual, and a cognac that ends up with a different aromatic profile.
There are great parallels to Madeira on this.
At the end. So
there are great parallels to Madeira on this story, and I think maybe we should sell you some Madeira barrels so that you could use Madeira barrels, because of course Madeira was invented through shipping to the West Indies and America, and the barrels were used as ballast in the bottom of the boats, which cooked the Madeira.
Exactly. That would be quite interesting. I mean, this is as a family business, there's a number of things we like to do, or we have freedom to experiment, right? Which is a great thing, and not thinking necessarily about, okay, is that going to be commercially viable in the next quarter or the next year or ever? So we can experiment, and where we like to experiment is both, as well as explaining, for example, for the distillation on ways to go further into the aromatic intensity. Another thing we like to do is trace back the history of cognac and look into that history for all the traditions or the environments or the circumstances that have now been discarded because not practical, or because the transportation means don't exist anymore, right? The world has changed, so it has had an impact on some of the production process of cognac. So Caribbean Expedition was a good example like this. We recreated conditions that no longer exist. So we didn't innovate, we just went back into history and brought that history back. And in doing this, we end up with a cognac that tastes unlike any other cognac on the market today, and very interestingly so. Port finish is another idea like this, that single, like this is an XO cognac, also entirely from our vineyards. Those things are generally not done anymore in the cognac region, but it used to be done that way, and we're bringing this back, and we call that the science of traditions. So basically exploring traditions, bringing science to it to analyze what difference does it make. So traveling on like this Caribbean expedition, what makes the most difference? Is it traveling on the ship, or is it aging in the hot and humid climate of Barbados? Where does the change take place? Why? And how can we then maybe use that to still improve the taste of our product back home in Cognac?
Is that Caribbean, what level Cognac is it? Is it a VS, VSOP? Is it XO?
It was slightly above VSOP.
And is that available in the United States and Asia and England?
It's available very limited basis. We only did about 4,500 bottles, so very limited. You can source it from our website, something camus.fr. Still a few bottles, and there's gonna be some specialist boutiques where you can find it. But yes, we keep on working on those things. Maybe if you've been to the Dordogne region, for example, in France. One little known fact is that Cognac is made in that region, which is mostly Charente-Maritime, but there's a small part of Dordogne, which is part of the Cognac appellation or the Cognac region. And because it's on the outlying part of the region, the production of Cognac was disappearing there. The vineyards were disappearing until the mayor of Saint-Olé decided that he wanted to protect this heritage, and he partnered with us to create a Cognac entirely from the Dordogne region. It's a Cognac made 100% from Colombard grapes, and it is a Cognac that is aged traditionally in the towers of the chateau, which is now the town hall, in casks that contain Montbazillac wine previously. So this is how Cognac was done there in Saint-Olé, 100 years ago, and we were creating those conditions to create and preserve this heritage. So when you go to Saint-Olé or to Dordogne, you can find some of those bottles there. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I just noticed earlier the bottle of VSOP that you had on your desk next to you was very different in visual packaging to the one which was put on the screen for us to see. Maybe we can see that one again. Is it a different Cognac, or do you have different labels for different markets, or why was that?
Upgraded label.
Maybe you could show the VSOP again.
This is maybe closer to what you had, I believe, on the screen, and this is the VSOP we have now. Same product. We just have upgraded the packaging a bit. I think Cognac is.
Those are VSOP. That one's very different. One we see now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. From this. No, this one is a blended Cognac. Also, the bottle is the one I've been tasting is single estate Cognac, all from our own vineyards. The one you have on the screen is our traditional blend of also a VSOP quality, but it will be a blend of Cognacs coming from different parts of the Cognac region. So there's some Borderies in it, but also Cognacs from the other region. So versus the when you compare those two Cognacs actually from us, the Borderie will be more floral and maybe a tiny bit less fruity than the VSOP Intensity, which will have more fruit, a little bit less floral. So it is.
How many different at any time? How many different SKUs, products you have on the market?
Of styles of Cognac, about 10 or 12. I would say not that many. I mean, different sizes, and then we have the limited expressions like the Caribbean Expedition or the Port Finish. Which are in this sort of science of tradition experiments, but ongoing products is about 12. Yes.
And the company, like a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, actually, I sent you the email, sent me a picture of a bottle of vintage cognac that you produce, and was asking about that. And that must be pretty rare.
It is. It is quite rare because it is difficult to find a vintage cognac that is interesting organoleptically, so that is actually that smells and tastes great. Even for the single estate cognac, we will blend from different years and cognacs of different ages from that estate to get the regularity of taste, but also to get different complexity. A very old cognac will bring a lot of softness, smoothness, right? A lot of complexity. You have those sort of the woodier notes that come in, the dry fruits that come in from an old cognac. But you also want some of the younger ones, the 5-6-year-old cognacs that you'll find in a VSOP that bring a lot of liveliness and character to it, right? They bring it to life. So with vintage cognacs, they from if you can only have from that 1 year, it is hard to find one that just had the right history of being aged in the right cellar and the right barrel for the right amount of time that correspond to the particular cognac you had distilled that year. And frankly, there is no science that we know of that allows you to predict when will that happen, when you have that perfect matching of history and circumstances and all those variables that come together to do, a great tasting 1970 cognac that you bottle in 2012, for example. So we do them, but we do them, I would say, not by design, but almost by chance, because we, master blender will taste and go through our stock of cognac on a very regular basis. And when we find something that is truly exceptional, then we set it aside and we do a release of a vintage cognac.
How is the market today? I imagine the trend for mixology has become so popular, and spirits have actually are growing again, which is probably nice for you. What are your how is your market? How has mixology impacted you? I know you've got on your website, you've got something called a sidecar, and you like cocktails. My personal favorite, I love cognac with orange juice. It's something I drank a lot of when I lived in Cognac, because we do everything in orange juice except for the XO maybe. But what are your thoughts on all
that? To go back on how is cognac doing, there's never been more cognac sold and cognac consumed than today. So cognac is at a historical high across the world. The US is the #1 market in terms of consumption. China is growing strong. Asia overall, Eastern Europe, even Western Europe is enjoying a bit of a resurgence. So the category is doing very, very well, and has been doing very well for almost 10 years in a row now. And mixology has some part to play with this. The emergence of more and more high-end cocktail bars is very favorable to cognac. One thing that few of us know, but is starting to be more known now, is that at the origin of cognac, of cocktails, you really had two spirits. You had brandy and you had rum. And the world of cocktails was divided amongst those two spirits, and then the local spirits. And all the way until Prohibition, a third of cocktail recipes were based on cognac. And through Prohibition, things changed. You couldn't bring the cognac into the country in the US. So started the cognac was switched for locally made whiskey, and it stayed like that after Prohibition. But now that history is getting revisited, in a way, and the more high-end cocktail bars are going back to original recipes. We see cognac making its way back into cocktails, and that's a great thing, because frankly, a Sazerac, it tastes great when it's made the original way, which is with a cognac, not with rye. Even an old fashioned with cognac is amazing, and of course the sidecar, which is my personal favorite, cognac triple sec and lemon.
Sidecar?
Sidecar is it's 2 parts, well, actually 4 parts cognac, 2 parts triple sec, like Cointreau, for example, or Grand Marnier, and 1 part lemon. Personally, I like a little bit more lemon juice. But,
that's delicious. And then, so you like cocktails. How do you drink cognac mostly? Is it after dinner the way you're drinking it now, or is it, do you prefer drinking cocktails?
I guess I'm a good representative of the cognac clientele overall. I'll drink it in many different ways, and cognac around the world is drunk in many different ways. In Western Europe, we'd see cognac drunk mostly neat, like this, and after the meal. So either as a digestive or with a cigar and so on. In Asia, in China in particular, you would drink it during the meal. And this is certainly what I was doing last night with our guests and friends in Shanghai. So instead of wine, basically, drinking spirits, drinking cognac. In the US, it would be in cocktails, and in Japan, very often it would be on the rocks. So I do all this. I tend to I don't do it all in one day, right? I vary my pleasures the different days. But yes, very often I would like during the week after work, I would tend to have cognac on the rocks before dinner. That's my way to sort of make the break between work and family life. So yeah, a glass of especially the Borderies VSOP with 1 large ice cube. I like that. When I'm with friends after dinner, I would usually share cognac neat. And on the weekends with my older kids or with friends, then I would start shaking up some cocktails.
How old were you when you first had cognac?
I first tasted when I was 11. Not officially endorsed by my father, but my brother and I, we used to get pocket money for cleaning up the table after the guests had left. And one day they decided that we've heard people talking about this drink for so much that we actually had to try it, and we did. And at 11 years old, of course, it's just impossible to drink, so that was not the best experience. But then when both my brother and I, when we turned 14, is when my father actually started sort of, I wouldn't say training us, but sort of exposing us to cognac, and all, as I was mentioning earlier, especially at that age, all on the nose. It was many years. I think I started when I was 14 with my father, just smelling the different cognacs that he had on every day that he was tasting, and I think it was I was something like 17 or 18 before I could get to sip it. So it was probably 4 years of just working on the nose.
I see you're using what's fairly classic cognac glass these days, but people who don't have that shape, I use a port glass. Do you recommend white wine glasses or brandy snifters, or what are your views on glassware?
Yes, I would recommend preferably what we call the tulip glass, because it is shaped like a tulip. If you don't have this, then yes, a port glass would be good, or a white wine glass. I don't remember the traditional brandy snifter, the very round glass. Because the brandy snifter comes from another era when cognac was kept in bottles in the cellars, and it was cold, and cognac really releases all its aromas when it's more or less at room temperature. So the shape of the glass was designed so that you could warm it up in your hand faster. But it has a disadvantage, the brandy snifter, of concentrating the vapors, and it gives it a much more alcoholic, stronger, more aggressive feel to it, which really doesn't increase enjoyment at all. So this is preferable if you can have access to a tulip glass, or as you were mentioning, a port glass, because then in this kind of shape, yeah, exactly, this is perfect.
Some people think of port glasses as little tiny weenie glasses, which are useless.
No, but yeah,
it's like a white wine.
Exactly, and that ensures only the lighter vapors and sort of the lighter aromas get released first. So it makes it much softer and easier to enjoy the floral and fruity aromas.
If you hadn't been in the cognac business, what would you have done?
I honestly don't know. That never came up. Really, it's I mean, it's such a great industry to be in.
It is.
And one where it's a great company to be in as well, because it has all that heritage, and there's this sense that which I guess, I mean, I guess when I was 20 years old, I probably wasn't thinking exactly in those ways, but there is something incredibly fulfilling in the notion that you're actually working with the work, and I'm participating in the work of my grandfather and my father, because the cognac I'm promoting today in the blend are cognacs that were distilled by my grandfather and cognacs that were distilled by my father. So I'm just one part of what they've created. I'm sort of putting the final touch to what they've done. At the same time, everything I'm distilling now, or most of it, it will be what my kids and my grandkids will be using. And there's something incredibly satisfying in knowing that what you're doing is going to outlive you. That is fascinating. But also from a younger person's perspective, which is probably what my older son is looking at now, is this is a great industry, or a great company and great business to be in, because you can be whoever you want, and you still bring something to the family business, because cognac is and our company is all those different aspects. It is producing the best possible cognac, so it is running the vineyards in the proper way. Today it is running it in an environmentally sustainable way, which is a huge challenge. It is dealing with climate change, which is also another a huge challenge and fascinating. But it is also then the blending, which is sort of more artistic. You got all the packaging side, which is very artistic, and then of course the commercial aspect, which is truly global and international. We export 98% of what we produce as an industry, and Camus is the same thing. We sell our products in 140 different countries. So whether you like staying home and loving nature, then you can contribute to this by running the vineyards properly. If you like the travel and the different markets, you can contribute to the family business that way as well. So it's pretty convenient, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, clearly you get great enjoyment out of your career and your travel and your family. And so let's talk a little bit about your family. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Cognac?
I did. I grew up in Cognac until the age of 14. And from that time, I remember, of course, that the vineyards, the production, but what I remember as well is that the world was coming to our home every day. My father was hosting business partners and guests at home almost every day. So to me, growing up as a little kid, seeing people from all over the world and hearing all kind of languages spoken at home, that was inspiring, actually.
You and I actually You and I actually have a very similar upbringing that way, because my parents did the same. We had dinner parties. I was, I'm not sure I was paid to clear the tables, but I was, during their dinner parties, I had to stand in a corner of the room throughout the dinner and pour wine and serve the plates, remove the plates, and listen to these. And really, as much as I love the wine business, and maybe I would have preferred to have had a job like Hugh Grant, but as much as I love the wine business, it wasn't necessarily the wine which drew me there, because I grew up drinking the greatest wines in the world and great cognacs too, but it was actually the people. Seeing that my father's friends were international, and it could have been a duke or a dustman, and they all had one thing in common, which is the wine and spirits. It's a unifying, and everyone who came to our dinner, house for dinner, was either interesting, intellectual, funny. There was something great about them, and that's, I think you and I actually.
It's exactly that. I mean, wines or cognac, they're, as you say, great unifiers. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. It brings a way to have a conversation that you would not have otherwise. It is the most social tool ever, and there is. It's also a great symbol, especially in the way we do in the West. When you bring out the bottle of cognac after the meal, you're sending a very strong signal and saying, "Hey, I'm enjoying this company. I'm enjoying this moment. Let's make it last, and let's continue having it."
Yeah, I mean, cognac is the difference between eating and dining.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, I actually I did an apprenticeship. Had a formal apprenticeship, so that I could become a liveryman for the Worshipful Company of Distillers. Are you familiar with that organization in England?
You mentioned that the first time we met. Yes.
Have you ever been a guest at one of our events?
No, I have not. I have not.
Well, when we can all travel again, I would love to take you as my guest to one of our dinners. It's very sort of ceremonial and grand, and they'd love to meet you. But we've got some wonderful pictures from your personal. Is it Alexa? Is your wife, right?
Yes, correct.
Alexa, I managed to persuade Alexa to send me some very personal pictures. She sent some marvelous ones, and of course, I don't know. I picked a few. I couldn't pick them all, so too many. But I wanted you to tell us what we're looking at right now. This picture is amazing. I know I've seen it somewhere on some television program or National Geographic or something. But where are you? And tell us about this picture.
This is this is a picture taken in Petra in Jordan, and this is actually the last trip we had as a family prior to COVID. So on the picture you have my two older sons, myself and my wife, and then my mother-in-law and her friend, and yeah, and it is we were very geographically split up family, right? My wife's family is between father is in Ukraine and mother is in Israel. Both of us are here. My oldest son was studying in New York at the time. Before that, he'd been in England. So there are very few times where we get to all meet together, but we kind of made it a tradition that at Christmas time would be when we end up always together somewhere. And more recently, it's become also a mix, interestingly, of leisure travel and business. We have our family business meetings at the Christmas period, where I report back to my kids what we've been doing with the business in the past year.
People often ask me, excuse me, they ask me, are you here for business or pleasure? And I have to say, well, what's the difference? Because that's not.
Yeah.
But in a place like Petra, is that a country, that's Jordan, is that a country where you can drink alcohol, or is it a dry country?
Jordan, I don't know.
Obviously, we're not there on business.
Yeah, no. I don't know actually. I suspect not, but I'm not sure.
Well, we have another picture. Let's see what else we've got here. Ah, that looks like.
Yeah, I was in Myanmar. Yeah, that was a lovely holiday as well. And there was, I think, a Chinese New Year. Actually, no, a New Year holiday. Myanmar, and obviously this is in Bagan, where all the they have thousands of temples, and if you're courageous enough to get up really early in the morning, you get into this hot air balloon and you fly over the temples as the sun rises.
Did you take that picture of that temple?
Yeah. It's quite magical moments.
Yeah, I bet. And Alexa, how did you meet Alexa?
We met in Ukraine. Common friend, also very sort of international story, I guess. A Belgian friend of mine wanted to take a British friend of his who was going through a rough patch for a fun weekend, and we went to visit a Turkish friend of ours who was in Odessa in Ukraine, and we met some of his friends at that time, and this is how I met my wife.
It's fantastic. Very romantic. You are a very international man. In fact, I couldn't show one of the pictures because it showed you with a sports car and a helicopter, and I thought people are just going to hate it if they see that. but I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist this one because I'm guessing you went diving with sharks.
Yeah. This is this was Alexa. Sort of a bucket list. We both have this list of things we would like to do, and we've been very deliberate actually about doing those things. Diving is also one of those things that unites us as a family. We all like diving, and my two boys, actually the two older boys, are very good divers. So yeah, went diving with sharks, and then the most recent one, which was the last picture at the bottom, was diving in the Dead Sea, which was one of those things that are supposedly not possible, but actually possible.
You float in the Dead Sea. Do you have to sort of kick really hard to get underneath the water? Or?
You have to carry between 40 and 50 kilos of weight.
Wow. And usually a diver's belt is how many kilos? I can't remember.
It's about 2, usually maximum 2 or 3 kilos. So it's not an easy exercise, and you also need to dive with a full face mask, which is a different style of diving, because you cannot have any salt touching your eyes or even your mouth, right? It would burn. So
is there anything to see? Is there any life underneath water?
No, there's no life whatsoever. But it's beautiful in its own way. You have mountains of salt that basically look like pillars of diamonds. When the sun hits from the different angles, it just sparkles, and it's like swimming in a forest of diamond trees. So yeah, it's worth it. But I think less than 1,000 people have dived in the Dead Sea. So this is a good family challenge.
That's a good one. I'm a scuba diver too, and that I had never even thought about that. So that's a good one for the bucket list. Let's see if there's another picture. Oh, where is this?
That is in where was that? Okay, that was in Austria, near Kitzbühel, I think. And this was with a group of friends from YPO, basically a group association I'm part of business leaders. Yes. And we have those weekends of both sort of education and discovery. And this typically it is very much part of my life. I don't take many holidays. or not long ones, at least. And I like to enjoy those moments, you know, just driving around. I believe in traveling by car when I have a choice. And typically on those pictures on the right, we just saw a beautiful lake, and we stopped and we liked it, and then, you know, rented the little wooden boat and just spent the day there, and ended up spending the night at a small hotel there. You know, no schedule, didn't matter what we had planned otherwise. It's that notion of being able to sometimes.
I absolutely agree with you. It's fantastic. Yeah, you must thank Alexa for sending these pictures, because obviously she didn't tell you what she was sending.
Those are good memories. Yeah.
I think there's one more. There's maybe one or two more. I know there's one of your wedding, yes, and you're so international. I think you had to have the same wedding in 3 places.
We did. We we got married in Cognac, and it was a very, very small gathering with just the family. Then we got married we had another ceremony in Santorini, which is this one, with our group of friends, and this also was an interesting take, that we, you know, weddings can be a pretty big or grand affair sometimes, and we really didn't want this. We just wanted people who are really close to us. So the rule is that we could only invite people that we both know, that we both like, and if those people came as a couple, we had to know and like both people in the couple. So it is very limiting, but it ended up being a wonderful 3 days in Santorini, because it was just the people we love.
Did you tell them they all had to wear white, or was that just?
Oh, yes. Oh yeah. It was very scripted. The whole it's as well. The place was chosen because of the color of the ocean. And because the houses in the background are white. So yeah, the color theme was the central part of the.
Was this your idea or Alexa's idea?
The color was Alexa. The color choices, and which, you know, I totally approve. It's one of those things we like having a bucket list or a list of things to do. I've seen so many people, and I was one of those, who, you know, keep on, when you're having a glass of cognac at the end of the dinner, and you're chatting with your friends, and you say, oh, it would be nice if one day we did this or we did that. Both Alexa and I are of the notion that if we say that, then we should do it. We're fortunate enough that through my work, actually, I get to go to a lot of places, so it is not always that much of an effort to take an extra step and say, okay, I'm in this country, all it takes is another 2 days to actually do that thing that I thought would be nice to do, and that's how we've done a tremendous amount of things. And
when I was working for a wine agency in Canada, called Shenley, a long time ago, one of the suppliers who came, I can't remember if it was Robert Drouin or Pierre Antinori, but someone like that, said whenever he goes to a new country, he spends, or new city, he spends 1 extra day to get to know it. And I think that was a brilliant lesson. That talking of weddings, though, my poor niece is getting married tomorrow in England, and she's only allowed 15 people to the wedding. So I'm going to be there, but watching it on YouTube from America. It'll be a very different COVID wedding. I think that was the last picture we had, and I really just want to thank you so much for making this Wine Wednesdays program so enjoyable, personal, interesting, educational, and I think I hope one day you and I will meet again on another Viking ship. You never know. But sadly, this is our last episode of this seven-part season, and hopefully we'll be doing more talks in the spring or sometime next year, maybe. We don't have time to answer questions. It's now, I think, midnight for you in China. So we're going to let you go, but anyone who wanted to ask questions, those questions will be forwarded to you and me, depending on who's best to answer it, or maybe we'll both see all of them, and we'll get back to each person individually. But Phil, thank you so much for staying up so late, and I really have enjoyed getting to know you today. I think I know you better today than having spent a few days on a cruise with you and your wife. I think you were very newly married then, so we didn't see much of you that trip. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, see you again.
Bye-bye.